My mother abused me my whole life. But when I asked her to watch my son with deadly allergies for 3 hours, she fed him cookies with nuts and milk, almost killed him. Now my entire family attacks me for cutting her out forever. I'm 28 years old. I'm a single mother, and I need to tell this story because what happened with my mother basically forced me to choose between her and my son's life. And there are still days when I wonder if I made the right decision, even though deep down I know I did. My son Noah is 5 years old now, and he's literally my entire world. But before I get to why I had to completely cut my mother out of our lives, you need to understand what it was like growing up with Diane as a mother, because without that context, maybe it would seem like I'm exaggerating or being dramatic, but I swear I'm not. My father died when I was 8 years old, a massive heart attack while driving home from work, and my sister Amanda was 6. Before that, we were a pretty normal family, I guess, or at least that's what I remember. Though honestly, the memories from before his death are blurry, like old photos that are fading. What I do remember perfectly is how everything changed afterwards. My mother, Diane, who was in her 30s at the time, became— I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it was like she decided that Amanda was the only daughter she had left, and I was just someone who lived in the same house. It wasn't immediate, you know? It was gradual, like when water heats up slowly and you don't realize it until it's already burning you. Amanda became the perfect child who could do whatever she wanted, while I was the problematic one, the difficult one, the one who never did anything right. If Amanda got a B in math, my mother celebrated like she'd won a Nobel Prize, but if I got straight A's, the comment was, "That's the least I expected from you." And look, I'm not saying Amanda was mean to me. She was just a kid too. But she grew up knowing she was the favorite and never questioned why our mother treated me differently. The teenage years were basically a nightmare. My mother found any excuse to criticize me, from my weight, which was completely normal, to the way I sat at the table. I remember once, I must have been like 15. I came home with a prize for an essay I'd written about social justice or something, super excited because it was a state competition, and when I showed it to my mother, she looked at it for 2 seconds and said, "And what's this going to do for you in real life?" While Amanda was sitting there watching TV after failing a history test. But when Amanda joined the cheerleading team, which lasted exactly 3 weeks before she quit, my mother organized a family dinner and invited all the neighbors to show off. It was like that with everything, you know? Like my existence bothered her, but Amanda's filled her with pride. No matter what we actually did. When I turned 18, I went to college as far away as I could, like 4 states away. With a full scholarship I'd worked my ass off to get because I knew my mother wasn't going to pay a cent for my education. Though she curiously did pay for Amanda's private college too, years later. During those 4 years of college, I talked to my family maybe once a month, and it was more out of obligation than desire. My mother never visited me, not once, though she did go see Amanda every 2 months when she started college. I graduated with honors in business administration, got a decent job at a marketing company, and met who I thought was the love of my life. We got married when I was 23, a year after we met, which I now know was too fast. But at the time, I was so desperate to have a real family, one that actually loved me, that I ignored all the red flags. My ex-husband turned out to be an abusive narcissist. But that's another story for another day. The important thing is we had Noah when I was 23, and from the moment he was born, I knew I'd do anything to protect him. The pregnancy was complicated. I had preeclampsia, and Noah was born premature at 32 weeks. He spent a month in the NICU, and during that time, my mother came to visit us exactly once, stayed 15 minutes, took a photo with the baby for Facebook, and left because Amanda needed her for something or other. My ex-husband, meanwhile, complained that I was spending too much time at the hospital and not enough taking care of him. When Noah was 6 months old, we started noticing something wasn't right with his feeding. Turns out he has severe allergies, like anaphylaxis level needs and EpiPen allergies, to 10 different foods: milk, eggs, nuts, peanuts, soy, wheat, fish, shellfish, sesame, and mustard. Basically, half of what exists in any supermarket can kill him. The doctors said it was one of the most complex cases they'd seen, and we had to completely change our way of living. We decided to raise him on a vegan diet, adapted to his allergies, obviously because it was safer and easier to control what ingredients we used. When Noah was 2, I finally left my ex-husband after he pushed me down the stairs while I was carrying the baby. Miraculously, Noah wasn't hurt, but I ended up with 3 broken ribs. The divorce was hell, but that's also another story. The point is, I found myself alone, with a small child with complex medical needs, without a job because my ex had convinced me to quit after Noah was born, and without savings because he controlled all the money. I had no choice but to go back to my hometown and start from scratch. My mother, surprisingly, seemed excited when I told her I was coming back. I think she thought she could finally control me again. Or maybe she just wanted to show off her grandson to her friends. I don't know. The first few months back were complicated. I got a remote job doing digital marketing for a small company, rented a 2-bedroom apartment near downtown, and tried to rebuild some kind of relationship with my family. Amanda, who was now 26, lived 20 minutes away and worked as a graphic designer. She'd matured a bit, I guess, or maybe just the contrast with my ex-husband made her seem more reasonable, but we started getting along better. My mother, on the other hand, immediately started with her stuff. She'd come to my apartment without warning, rearrange my furniture, criticize how I was raising Noah, complain that his food was weird because it was vegan and allergen-free, and constantly made passive-aggressive comments about my divorce, like it was my fault my ex was violent. One day, when Noah was 3.5, my mother showed up at my house at 7 in the morning on a Saturday without warning, as always, and started yelling at me because Noah was watching cartoons in his pajamas instead of being dressed and ready for who knows what. I told her to leave, that it was my house and my son, and she started crying and saying I was ungrateful, that all she wanted was to help, the complete victim show she always did. I called Amanda, explained the situation, and asked her to talk to our mother about boundaries. Amanda, in her typical conflict avoidance style, said she'd talk to her but that I also needed to be more flexible. Whatever. Apparently it worked because my mother calmed down a bit in the following weeks. Then came the day that changed everything. It was last October. I had an important presentation with a potential client that could mean a considerable increase in my salary. My regular babysitter was sick, Amanda was traveling, and I had no other option but to ask my mother to watch Noah for 3 hours. I explained, and when I say explained, I mean I literally gave her a written list and read it out loud to her twice, all the foods Noah could not eat under any circumstances. I showed her where his safe snacks were, his lunch already prepared, everything. I showed her how to use the EpiPen, though I prayed she wouldn't need it. My mother rolled her eyes and said, "Jessica, I raised 2 daughters, I know how to take care of a child. I should have canceled the meeting right there, but I needed that job. I needed the money." And I thought, it's just 3 hours. What could happen? I was in the middle of my presentation when I got a call from the hospital. My son was in the emergency room with a severe allergic reaction. I ran out of that office like it was on fire, drove to the hospital, probably breaking every traffic law in existence. And when I arrived, I found Noah connected to an IV, his face swollen, barely conscious. The doctors told me if he'd arrived 10 minutes later. I don't even want to think about it. My mother was sitting in the waiting room, and when she saw me, the first thing she said was, "I don't understand what happened." I just gave him some cookies. Turns out she'd gone to the store and bought normal cookies, because the ones I had didn't taste like anything. And she thought I was exaggerating about the allergies. The cookies had milk, eggs, and nuts, 3 of his most severe allergens. I don't remember exactly what I said to her in that moment. I think my brain blocked that memory as a defense mechanism, but I know I screamed at her like I'd never screamed at anyone in my life. The nurses had to separate me from her. Amanda arrived that night. She cut her trip short when I called and tried to mediate, saying it had been an accident, that our mother didn't do it on purpose, but I couldn't even look at her. An accident? I gave her a list. I read it to her twice. I explained this could kill him, and she decided she knew better? Noah was in the hospital for 3 days. 3 days watching my baby struggle to breathe, swollen, in pain, traumatized. The hospital bill was almost $20,000. Thank God I had insurance, but I still had to pay $4,000 for the deductible that I didn't have. After that, I told my mother she could never be alone with Noah again. If she wanted to see him, it had to be with me present. Period. She, of course, played the victim, cried, accused me of using her grandson as a weapon, all the usual manipulation. Amanda tried to convince me I was being too harsh, that Mom had learned her lesson, but I stood firm. And for the next few weeks, My mother could come visit us, but I never left her alone with Noah for even a second. If I went to the bathroom, Noah came with me. It was exhausting, but I couldn't risk it again. One day, about 2 months after the hospital incident, my mother came to visit. Noah was playing in his room, and I was in the kitchen making dinner. I could hear my mother talking on the phone in the living room, probably thinking I couldn't hear her. But my apartment is small, and the walls are thin. I clearly heard her say, "It's just that child is such a burden. He can't eat anything normal. Jessica is raising him like some weird bug with that hippie vegan diet. It's not my fault the kid is so sickly. It's probably because she was taking who knows what during pregnancy." I stood frozen there in the kitchen, knife in hand cutting vegetables. And something inside me just broke. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was more like when you finally accept something you always knew, but didn't want to admit. I walked into the living room very calmly, which I think scared her more than if I'd come in screaming. And I said, "You need to leave my house right now, and I don't want to see you again." She started with her show of tears and victimization, but I just went to the door, opened it, and stood there until she left. That night, I blocked her on all my social media, my phone, everything. I sent Amanda a message explaining what had happened and that my decision was final. Amanda replied that I was overreacting, that mom didn't mean it, that family is family, all those canned phrases people say when they don't want to deal with the discomfort of recognizing that sometimes family is toxic. 2 weeks later, for Noah's 4th birthday, my mother sent gifts through Amanda. They were expensive toys, the kind that cost like $100 each, clearly trying to buy forgiveness or make my modest gift look bad. But what finally confirmed I'd made the right decision was that among the gifts was a box of gourmet birthday cookies that, of course, contained milk and nuts. I don't know if she did it on purpose or if she genuinely didn't care enough to remember what could kill her grandson, and honestly, I don't know which option is worse. I returned all the gifts to Amanda unopened, except the cookies, which I threw in the trash after taking photos in case I needed them as evidence someday. My mother, through Amanda, sent me a letter saying the cookies had been a mistake by the store, that she'd ordered special ones without allergens. Yeah, right. It also said I was being cruel, that I was using Noah to punish her, and that my hippie vegan lifestyle was what had caused all of Noah's health problems in the first place. Because apparently, according to her, if I hadn't breastfed him so long, or if I'd given him normal formula instead of the hypoallergenic kind, or if I wasn't so extremist with his diet, he'd be a normal child. The ignorance and cruelty in that letter were impressive. What followed were months of harassment by proxy. My mother told her version of the story to the whole family, and suddenly I started getting calls and messages from aunts, cousins, and even from Helen, a second cousin I hadn't seen in years, telling me I was being cruel, that my mother was devastated, that I was depriving Noah of his grandmother, that I'd regret it when she died. Helen was particularly vicious, sending me messages saying I was an ungrateful bitch, that I deserved my husband leaving me. They didn't know he was the abusive one. My mother told them I'd cheated on him, and that Noah would grow up hating me for keeping him away from his family. I had to block more than 15 relatives total. The funny or sad, depending on how you look at it, thing is that none of these people had cared about us before. Nobody called when I was in the hospital with broken ribs. Nobody offered help when I was a newly divorced single mother. But now everyone had opinions about my decisions. Amanda kept trying to mediate. Poor thing. She'd call me every week with some new proposal. What if Mom went to therapy? What if she signed something promising to follow Noah's diet rules? What if we only met in public places? I'd explained to her over and over that it wasn't just about the food. It was about the fact that my mother didn't respect my decisions as a mother, didn't respect my son's health, and fundamentally, didn't respect us as people. But Amanda had never experienced our mother's cruel side like I had, so she couldn't really understand it. 6 months ago, at a wedding of a mutual childhood friend, I was sitting with Noah at the reception when I saw my mother walk into the venue. I froze. She wasn't supposed to be there. I'd confirmed with the bride that she wasn't invited. Turns out the bride's mother invited her without telling her daughter. My mother saw me, saw Noah, and started walking toward us. I picked Noah up and headed for the exit, but she caught up with us in the parking lot. She started screaming, crying, saying she just wanted to see her grandson, that I was a monster, that I was destroying the family. Noah was terrified, crying, clinging to me, Some people came out to see what was happening, and my mother, having an audience, escalated her performance. She threw herself on the ground, literally threw herself on the parking lot ground, crying that I was killing her, that her heart couldn't take it. It was so dramatic and pathetic that some people who didn't know the situation started looking at me like I was the bad guy. I got in the car with Noah and we left while she was still on the ground doing her show. That night, Amanda called me hysterical, saying Mom had to be hospitalized for a nervous breakdown after the wedding incident. I felt guilty for exactly 5 seconds until Amanda mentioned that the doctors said it had been a self-induced panic attack. Basically, she'd hyperventilated on purpose until she passed out. But what came out of that hospitalization was something neither of us expected. My mother was diagnosed with severe bipolar disorder. The doctors said she'd probably had it for years untreated. Amanda called me crying, saying this explained everything, that Mom was sick, that it wasn't her fault. And look, I understand that mental illness is real and serious. My own anxiety and depression post-divorce taught me that. But having a mental illness doesn't give you a free pass to endanger a child's life or to be cruel to your children for decades. My mother is now in a mental health institution in another state, something her sister, my aunt, arranged after she apparently had another episode where she threatened to hurt herself if they didn't give her back her grandson. Amanda visits me sometimes, though our relationship is strained. She still thinks I should forgive Mom now that we know about her diagnosis, but I can't. It's not just about Noah, though protecting him is my #1 priority. It's about a lifetime of emotional abuse, of favoritism, of casual cruelty that now has a medical label but doesn't erase the damage done. Amanda doesn't understand because she was never the target. She was the light in Mom's eyes while I was the annoying shadow. I hired a professional babysitter, Susan, a woman in her 50s who has experience with children with severe allergies. Noah adores her, calls her Miss Susie, and is thriving. His last checkup with the allergist showed that some of his allergies are improving slightly, though he'll probably have to live with most of them his whole life. He started kindergarten this year and has a 504 plan that requires the school to have strict protocols about his food. He's a happy, funny, incredibly smart kid. And every day I'm grateful I had the strength to protect him, even when it meant losing most of my family. Last week, Noah asked me why we don't see Grandma Diane anymore. That's what he called her. I told him, in the simplest and most age-appropriate way, that Grandma was sick and couldn't take care of him safely. He thought about it for a moment and then said, "It's okay, Mommy. You take care of me really well," and went back to playing with his dinosaurs. And honestly, that's all I need to hear. I don't need my mother's approval. I don't need an extended family that can't or won't understand why my son's safety is more important than keeping family peace. I don't need anything except knowing my son is safe, loved, and that I'm breaking the cycle of toxicity I had to live through. Some days are hard, especially when I see other families at the park with loving grandparents. But then I remember it's better to have no grandparents than to have one who could literally kill you through negligence or stubbornness, and I keep going,